Okay, I want to show a couple of the basic Git command line commands. Of course, as beginners are learning Git, one of the popular tools nowadays, a GUI-based tool, GitHub Desktop. Okay, and so I'm going to also just kind of briefly touch on GitHub Desktop. Now, what I'm looking at here on the left, this is my github.com online repository. I have cloned this repository onto my desktop, and we're looking at the local folder. Here you can see desktop, AWD, blah, 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 Evan Gudmested. And so this is my local repo. So we have an online repo on the left, a local repo on the right. And you can see here I have this folder called Maui Tutorials, ultimately with some code that I've built inside this repo that is not online yet. Okay, so the easy tool, and I'm not going to actually use this tool, but again, beginner friendly, is GitHub Desktop. Now I want to show GitHub Desktop because if you work with multiple repos, kind of the question is, how do you change back and forth between repositories? And I find this a little not intuitive. If you already have local repos that have been cloned, if you have many local repos, you click on add local repository as if it's something new, but it's not really doing an add. And so here then you browse to your local path. Now I will show you if I go to my desktop and I go to that folder, okay, it will show all the files that have not yet been pushed onto my online repo. And so very easily here, I would type in a commit message. I would click this blue button to commit. That does a local save point, if you will. That's a commit, it's a local save. And then this button right here, instead of saying fetch, it would say push. I would click that push button, right? Then I would come back here and refresh the page, and all of those files would be pushed. However, we're not using this tool today. Instead, we're going to use the command line. So a little less beginner friendly, more maybe power user would be those who are familiar at the command line, how to work with Git at the command line. Now, just to make sure that my local repo has all of the files that are online, you might start with a git pull. I could do a git pull. I should be up to date. So that's not really a necessary command at this point. But again, that would kind of get my local repository with all the files that were online. Again, we're already there. Now, if I do a git status, this is a good command to see that there are untracked files. And here in these Maui tutorials folder, there's a whole bunch of files. And kind of the popular command, if I hit the up arrow, if I do, after a git status, you do a git add. And what the git add command is, it can add all those files to what's called the staging area. Right now that these are untracked files, they haven't been added to the staging area. You can see here that these are untracked files. And kind of the wild card to add everything that has not been tracked is git add dot. So this is a real common command to just add all of the untracked files to the staging area. And you get a little warning. Okay, so now if I do another git status, you can see all of these new files are ready to be committed. And so these are now staged, as it's referred to, and they are ready to be committed. So a commit is a local save point. So I'm going to say git commit. This is creating that save point. I'm going to give it a message of completed chapter 3 Maui tutorials. Now the purpose of the message is to be descriptive. And so when you have a save point, you can roll forward, you can roll back. Again, you can change your software to these different save points. So these commit messages are very highly important to be descriptive. And so a lot of beginners, they just make these meaningless messages that do not communicate, the purpose of the commit. And so don't do that. Okay, so there's our commit. We have created a local save point. And last but not least, we're going to do a git push. And that's going to push these files onto github.com off of now just our local repository and pushing it to the remote that we've configured when we did a clone. And you can kind of see the URL of that remote repository. If I come back here and I do a refresh, you can now see Maui Tutorials Chapter 3, and you can see my commit message. You know, it's not on github.com. I mean, just because you do a commit, that's a local save point until you do a push. So what you always want to do is you want to come back to your GitHub repo, kind of do a refresh and make sure that the code that you just were working with has made it up to github.com and off of your local repo. Okay, so those are the common commands that we just walked through: git pull, git status, git add. So there you go: git pull, git status, git add, git commit, and git push. Those are the basics.